Arthur Conan Doyle's A Study in Scarlet, first published in 1887, marks the debut of one of the most iconic literary characters of all time, Sherlock Holmes. This novel is not only significant for introducing Holmes but also for establishing the framework of the modern detective genre. The narrative is rich in character development, thematic exploration, and innovative structure, making it a landmark in both crime fiction and literary history. This essay provides a detailed analysis of A Study in Scarlet, focusing on its structure, characters, themes, and the socio-historical context that influenced its creation. A Study in Scarlet is divided into two distinct parts, each with a unique style and focus. The first part is set in London and introduces Dr. John Watson, a war veteran who becomes Holmes's companion and chronicler. This section primarily focuses on the investigation of the mysterious murder of Enoch Drebber, a case that initially baffles the police. Through Watson's narration, readers are introduced to Holmes's methodical and scientific approach to crime solving, which is a stark contrast to the more intuitive or emotional methods used by detectives in earlier literature. The second part of the novel shifts dramatically in both tone and setting, taking the reader to the United States, specifically to the Mormon community in Utah. Here, Doyle provides a backstory for the crime, detailing the events that led up to the murder. This section is more of a historical narrative than a detective story, exploring themes of vengeance, religious fanaticism, and the harshness of pioneer life. The shift in narrative style from a modern detective story to a historical romance is jarring for some readers but serves a crucial purpose in explaining the motivations behind the crime. The bifurcated structure of A Study in Scarlet has been a subject of much discussion among scholars. Some view it as a weakness, arguing that the shift in narrative disrupts the flow of the story. Others, however, see it as a strength, as it allows Doyle to explore the origins of crime in a more detailed and nuanced way. The structure also reflects Doyle's broader literary influences, including the sensation novels of Wilkie Collins and the adventure stories of Robert Louis Stevenson, both of which often employed complex, multi-part narratives. The character of Sherlock Holmes is, without doubt, the most significant aspect of A Study in Scarlet. Doyle presents Holmes as a brilliant but eccentric detective, whose intelligence and observational skills are unmatched. Holmes's methods are grounded in logic and science, reflecting the growing influence of scientific thinking in the late 19th century. His use of forensic science, chemical analysis, and careful observation to solve crimes was revolutionary at the time and set the standard for the detective genre. Holmes's personality is complex. He is often portrayed as cold and unemotional, more interested in solving puzzles than in the human aspects of his cases. However, there are moments in the novel that hint at a deeper, more empathetic side to his character. For instance, Holmes's decision to let Jefferson Hope, the murderer, tell his story before dying shows a degree of compassion and understanding that is not immediately apparent in his earlier interactions. John Watson serves as the reader's proxy in the novel. Through his eyes, we are introduced to the world of Sherlock Holmes and the methods he uses to solve crimes. Watson's admiration for Holmes is evident, but he is also aware of his friend's flaws. Watson's own character is developed through his backstory as a wounded war veteran, which adds depth to his role as more than just a sidekick. His medical background also provides a rational counterpoint to Holmes's more eccentric qualities, making him an ideal companion for the detective. The novel's antagonist, Jefferson Hope, is also a well-developed character, particularly in the second part of the novel where his backstory is revealed. Unlike many villains in detective fiction, Hope is portrayed in a sympathetic light. His actions, though criminal, are driven by a desire for justice and revenge against those who wronged him. This nuanced portrayal of the antagonist adds a layer of moral complexity to the novel, challenging the reader to consider the motivations behind criminal behavior. Several themes run through A Study in Scarlet, making it a rich text for analysis. The most prominent of these is the theme of justice. Throughout the novel, Holmes is portrayed as a seeker of justice, but his methods are often outside the bounds of the law. This raises questions about the nature of justice and whether it can be achieved through legal means alone. The novel also explores the idea of vigilante justice, particularly in the second part where Jefferson Hope takes the law into his own hands. This theme reflects the tension between the rule of law and personal retribution, a common concern in the 19th century as legal systems were still developing. Another significant theme is the conflict between science and religion. Holmes represents the rational, scientific approach to understanding the world, while the Mormon community in the second part of the novel is depicted as fanatical and oppressive. This contrast highlights the broader cultural shift towards secularism and scientific reasoning that was occurring in the late 19th century. Doyle, who had a medical background, was clearly influenced by these ideas, and they're reflected in his portrayal of Holmes as a modern, scientific detective. The theme of isolation is also present in the novel, particularly in the character of Dr. Watson. Watson is introduced as a lonely figure, recently returned from war and without a clear purpose in life. His friendship with Holmes provides him with a sense of belonging and a new direction. This theme of isolation and the search for connection resonates with the broader Victorian concern with urbanization and the breakdown of traditional social structures. Finally, the novel explores the theme of revenge. Jefferson Hope's quest for vengeance drives much of the plot, and his actions raise questions about the morality of revenge. While his motives are understandable, his methods are brutal, leading the reader to question whether revenge can ever be justified. This theme is closely linked to the novel's exploration of justice, as both deal with the consequences of crime and punishment. To fully understand A Study in Scarlet, it is essential to consider the socio-historical context in which it was written. The late 19th century was a period of significant change in Britain, marked by rapid industrialization, urbanization, and the expansion of the British Empire. These changes brought about new social challenges, including increased crime rates, which in turn led to a growing public interest in crime and detective fiction. The character of Sherlock Holmes was very much a product of this context. His emphasis on logic, observation, and scientific reasoning reflects the growing influence of science and technology in Victorian society. Holmes's methods also mirror the advancements in forensic science that were taking place at the time, such as the development of fingerprint analysis and the use of chemical tests in criminal investigations. The novel's depiction of the Mormon community in Utah reflects the Victorian fascination with the exotic and the unknown. The Mormons, who were often viewed with suspicion and fear in 19th century Britain, are portrayed in the novel as a closed and repressive society. This portrayal reflects the broader Victorian anxieties about religious extremism and the threat it posed to social order. The novel also reflects the Victorian interest in the frontier and the idea of the American West as a place of danger and opportunity. The harsh landscape of Utah, with its deserts and mountains, serves as a backdrop for the story of revenge and survival, highlighting the challenges faced by pioneers in the American West. This depiction of the American frontier contrasts sharply with the more familiar setting of London in the first part of the novel, emphasizing the global scope of the story. A Study in Scarlet was not an immediate success when it was first published, but it laid the foundation for the Sherlock Holmes series, which would go on to become one of the most successful and influential in literary history. The novel introduced many of the elements that would become hallmarks of the detective genre, including the brilliant but eccentric detective, the loyal companion, and the use of scientific methods to solve crimes. Doyle's creation of Sherlock Holmes had a profound impact on the development of detective fiction. Holmes's emphasis on logic and deduction influenced countless writers who followed, including Agatha Christie, whose character Hercule Poirot shares many traits with Holmes. The popularity of Holmes also contributed to the establishment of the detective as a central figure in popular fiction, a trend that continues to this day. The novel's influence extends beyond the literary world. Sherlock Holmes has become a cultural icon, with countless adaptations in film, television, and other media. The character's enduring popularity speaks to the timeless appeal of the detective figure and the continuing relevance of the themes explored in A Study in Scarlet. Over the years, A Study in Scarlet has been the subject of much critical analysis. Early reviews were mixed, with some praising the novel's originality and others criticizing its structure. However, as the popularity of Sherlock Holmes grew, so too did the appreciation for the novel that introduced him. Today, A Study in Scarlet is recognized as a classic of crime fiction and a pioneering work in the detective genre. Critics have often focused on the novel's structure, with some arguing that the shift between the two parts is disjointed and detracts from the overall story. Others, however, see it as an innovative approach that adds depth and complexity to the narrative. The novel's portrayal of the Mormon community has also been a point of contention, with some critics arguing that it reflects the prejudices of its time. However, it is important to view this aspect of the novel in the context of 19th-century British society, which had limited understanding of and exposure to Mormonism. A Study in Scarlet is more than just the debut of Sherlock Holmes. It is a rich and multifaceted work that offers insight into the cultural and social concerns of the late 19th century. The novel's innovative structure, memorable characters, and exploration of themes such as justice, revenge, and the conflict between science and religion make it a significant work in the history of detective fiction. The character of Sherlock Holmes stands out as a revolutionary figure in literature. His scientific approach to solving crimes, combined with his eccentric personality, set him apart from previous fictional detectives. Holmes's influence on the genre is immeasurable, establishing many of the conventions that have become standard in detective stories. His methods of deduction, observation, and logical reasoning not only captured the imagination of readers but also reflected the growing importance of scientific thinking in Victorian society. Drive John Watson, as Holmes's companion and narrator, provides a vital perspective on the detective's world. His character grounds the novel in reality, offering readers a relatable entry point into the more fantastical elements of Holmes's investigations. Watson's development from a wounded war veteran to a loyal friend and chronicler of Holmes's adventures adds depth to his character and enriches the narrative. The novel's themes resonate with the anxieties and preoccupations of its time. The exploration of justice and revenge, particularly through the character of Jefferson Hope, challenges readers to consider the moral complexities of crime and punishment. Hope's story, while tragic, raises important questions about the limits of legal justice and the consequences of taking the law into one's own hands. This theme is particularly relevant in the context of the Victorian era, a time when the legal system was still evolving and grappling with issues of fairness and equity. The conflict between science and religion is another key theme in A Study in Scarlet. Sherlock Holmes, as a representative of scientific rationalism, often clashes with the more mystical or superstitious elements of society. This tension reflects the broader cultural shift towards secularism in the late 19th century, as scientific discoveries increasingly challenged traditional religious beliefs. The novel's portrayal of the Mormon community, while controversial, serves to highlight the dangers of religious fanaticism and the importance of critical, independent thinking. The socio-historical context of the novel is crucial to understanding its themes and characters. The late 19th century was a time of rapid change, with advancements in science, technology, and exploration transforming society. These changes brought about new challenges and uncertainties, which are reflected in the novel's focus on crime, justice, and the power of human reason. The depiction of the American West, with its harsh landscapes and lawless frontiers, contrasts sharply with the more familiar urban setting of London, emphasizing the global scope of the narrative and the diverse influences that shaped Doyle's writing. A Study in Scarlet also stands as a pioneering work in its use of forensic science in fiction. Sherlock Holmes's methods of investigation, including his use of chemical analysis and detailed observation, were groundbreaking at the time and have since become staples of the detective genre. Doyle's medical background undoubtedly influenced his depiction of Holmes's scientific approach, and this emphasis on forensic science has had a lasting impact on both literature and real-life criminal investigations. In terms of literary influence, A Study in Scarlet paved the way for countless detective stories and established many of the conventions that define the genre. The novel's success led to a series of Sherlock Holmes stories that further developed the character and his methods, solidifying his place in literary history. The influence of Holmes can be seen in the works of many later writers, from Agatha Christie to modern crime novelists, who have drawn on Doyle's techniques and themes to create their own detective heroes. The legacy of A Study in Scarlet extends beyond literature. Sherlock Holmes has become a cultural icon, with his image and methods enduring in popular culture through numerous adaptations in film, television, and other media. The character's enduring appeal speaks to the timeless nature of the detective figure and the universal fascination with solving mysteries. Holmes's influence can be seen in the way modern detectives, both fictional and real, approach their work, emphasizing the importance of logic, evidence, and deductive reasoning. In conclusion, A Study in Scarlet is a seminal work that not only introduced the world to Sherlock Holmes but also helped to define the detective genre. Through its innovative structure, complex characters, and exploration of themes such as justice, science, and revenge, the novel offers a rich and compelling narrative that continues to captivate readers. The socio-historical context in which the novel was written is crucial to understanding its significance, as it reflects the concerns and challenges of a rapidly changing world. Arthur Conan Doyle's creation of Sherlock Holmes has left an indelible mark on literature and popular culture, ensuring that A Study in Scarlet remains a classic of detective fiction.